Hey folks, thanks for stopping by and checking out the Business Line podcast. In this show, what we're trying to do is get in front of people all over the country, all over the world that are moving and shaking in business, whether they're a part of a big business or they're starting something from the ground up. We want to get to know them. We want to get to know their journey, their struggle, and a little bit about what they love in life. We hope you check out every episode you can. Hey, David, welcome to the Business Line podcast, buddy. Thanks for joining us. Really happy to have you here.
It's an absolute pleasure, Brian. Pumped to be here.
Cool. Well, we were talking just a little bit ago, and I mentioned that I've seen some of your stuff. But tell our audience, give us, short rundown. What's your story, David? How did you get to where you are?
Oh, the TLDR. So, I'm a designer by trade. Not many people know. Started when I was 13, 14, just doing different projects for friends and family. Then started a little business out of it. And then my cousin and I joined forces. He was in multimedia and was doing, way back then, it was like one of the first degree courses in website design. There's showing our age there, one of the first degrees in that. Fast forward, we built like a design and website agency. And then the intake of all those freelancers, freelancer.com came out. So then, to get a website, get it for $200. Yeah. So we sort of started to see the end of that mid to small tier sort of projects. And we always wanted to build a product. We stumbled across a gentleman called Phil Wyman. He was a pretty big entrepreneur here in Australia, had built and sold a few businesses and was like a bit of an incubator before that was a thing. So he pretty much rented out a physical mansion out in Melbourne, and all the businesses that he had invested in were working out of there. So it was a pretty cool place. While we were there, he had one of his friends share a problem that they had within the business travel space. Okay. And he knew that we could design and develop and build sites. So he just threw the problem at us and said, try and come up with something and solve it. Fast forward a little bit from that, that's where our company, Locomote.com, was born. So it's a business travel software company where the company itself would help organizations build, manage, and book their business travel. Okay. So we built it up, my cousin and I, to 150 people. Wow. People all over the world, customers all over the world, and we sold it to a then listed company called Travelport. Okay. So that was in 2016. We had to stay on, Ross and I, for another 2 years, 2018, the good old golden handcuffs. And then I'll never forget, August 2018, we left, did a little bit of investing in other companies and mentoring, but sort of been I think as a founder, but being part of something. So that was about a 5-6 year journey within that one there. A lot of our self-worth and our image was tied to that company. So we will, if I'll be honest, I was a little bit lost for a couple of years. And then obviously COVID hit, which reduced a lot of the ability to go out and network and find a lot of new opportunities. But during that time, obviously the business travel space got decimated, like many. Yeah. But travel got hit hard, not only where you couldn't travel, but then those companies that service that industry had to refund money. So they didn't just stop making revenue, they went in reverse. So the company we had sold it to started to divest a lot of their investments that they made over time to focus on their core. We got wind through some of our employees that were still there that they were looking at selling Locomote. So we entered the ring to try and acquire it back, which we did for pennies on the dollar. Relaunched it during COVID. So obviously, people weren't buying and business travel because you couldn't travel at all, obviously. So we're in two minds. Do we just hold on to the asset, ride COVID out, and then just try and sell it again, make a quick flip? Mm-hmm. Or do we look at this as an opportunity to have Locomote version 2? So my cousin, he's the CEO and co-founder, great leader, great visionary for the product. He loves that space. My love and passion is sales and marketing. So I took that charge there of, okay, how am I going to position the company now, second time round? How do I sell this thing during one of the most challenging economic times ever, especially for that industry? So that's when I enlisted one of my good buddies, Luigi Prestonenzi. He is a sales trainer. He's a practitioner, so he still does a lot of selling himself back then. And I said, dude, I need your help. I need you to sort of coach me around how should I position this? I'm like, no one wants to take a call. No one's responding to the emails because what we're selling, they can't do. It's not a burning platform. People are going remote, so they're scrambling to get all that crap sorted. And he was like, so we worked together for a period of time, changed our messaging, our approach. And within eight months, I was able to build out 150 mil pipeline from that, just from Australian companies. It's quite a small market in that space. Had converted quite a lot of those. So when COVID started to ease, we were able to hockey stick out and people started to travel. And I took that approach that Luigi taught me and started to build a team from there. And then we got investment to relaunch it because it's quite an expensive company to run and low margins. So it required a bit of capital to get going. And we were able to do that quite successfully. And so I left that business in March 23 to focus on what I'm working on now, which is Growth Forum, together with Luigi. So we joined forces, and my cousin's still running that business there and doing an amazing job.
That's a heck of a story. So it's crazy. You built the same company twice, right?
Yeah.
You made it you made it successful with your team. It things happen, and you came back in and you said, "Hey, I'm just going to rebuild this thing again. Let's go at it again."
Yeah, it was exciting. We felt like we had unfinished business. That was the thing. We didn't hit the heights. It was a successful exit the first time round, but we didn't hit the heights that we knew that the company's potential had. So we thought, hey, it's rare that you get a second bite of the cherry in a really crazy situation that a lot of people found themselves in across the globe during COVID. So we thought the stars just aligned up for us to take it back and go round two.
You've got Growth Forum. And listen, this sounds exciting to me because the little bit that I've learned over the last couple of days and kind of learning a little bit about you for the show is you speak my language, David. You talk to my heart when you're talking about, not only, some of the things that I've heard you kind of in some other shows and appearances kind of coach some people up on some top 5 things to do this and that. And I'm like, wow, that's just so true. But you're also talking about some of the things that you see people struggle with, like founders of companies that are selling in their companies and how to get them out of, because everybody kind of wants to take that next step. People take those steps and then and things fall apart. Like it seems like it's going good. And then you take a couple steps back. And you're like, I'm just going to do all the selling again and so on and so forth. So tell us a little bit about Growth Forum. Let's have a good little dialogue about kind of how you guys attack sales and marketing. And I'm just pumped.
Yeah, no, thank you. And look, so true what you said there, right? Like, especially if we can play on what you said towards the end about a founder, they do the sales of the business, and it's usually by brute force that they do it because they've got so much passion and belief in the product and service that they're building and offering, is that they obviously sometimes won't have a systemized process to build a repeatable sales system within the business. They're just really pushing and hustling to get the next deal, to build their business, drive revenue, to grow their company. So then the next thing they do is they go, okay, I'm at 100, 200, $500,000, even $1 million we've brought into the business now. I've been doing this. I need to go back to building the product, the service, and focus on founder/CEO things. I'm going to build out a sales team. I've been able to sell it. I'm just going to get some salespeople in, and then they're just going to rock and roll and take over from me. I made this mistake myself within Locomote, going, well, I've done it. Now I'm just going to bring it in. I'll just train them up a bit, and away they go. But the missing fundamental there is that they haven't built out a system. And when I say built out a system, just following a framework that you can then hand over to the team, where it gives them the guardrails that they need, whether it be, here's the outreach cadence, here is the messaging that we go with, here's how we manage the first call, here's what we do after the first call. Now, there's always going to be some nuances depending on who you're talking to, but here is the framework that you should follow, because I've applied this framework and importantly, I've stuck to it. And these are the results I've driven. So I know it works. So I know then that you, with a high level of certainty, are going to be able to apply it. That's that missing part, right? We see the difference between when a founder-led business has got that, then they hire and they give them that playbook and they support them with some training, whether it's by them or external. Those individuals smash it. Yeah. Right. So the key is you need to earn the right to hire a sales team. Then you need to enable them to ensure they're going to succeed. There's nothing worse than bringing on a salesperson or two and then leave them to their own device and then,
hey, why aren't you producing?
That's right. Why aren't you producing? Think it's them, get rid of them, bring someone else in. And before you know, you spun your wheels for like 6 to 8 months and burnt cash thinking that it's someone else's problem. But the real problem is it's you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I a little over a year ago hired our first salesperson into the company to kind of take over the IT service sales that I was doing, the managed service sales, outside sales stuff. And I probably could have done it a year before that, maybe even more, but I was always I keep my eyes open, keep my ears open. I'm networking, meeting people that I'm thinking, would this person make a good one? But one of my problems is I was always judging based on me and my commitment to my company. You know what I mean? Like, that's one thing that's hard for, I think, founders to get over is like, hey guys, no one's ever going to have the skin in the game like you. We got to curb that enthusiasm for and understand that people get excited for making money and commissions and winning. But at the same time, you gotta make sure. I had to learn to temper my expectations. But we found a person, personality-wise, maybe not 100% match, but definitely hungry, great guy. From the local area, had some sales experience in a different industry, and we didn't know each other, but we're on the same wavelength. And like, I knew that I had to give that person access to the same system that I used and learned to learn how to do what I did. So, and my biggest problem was I didn't realize that the cycle of going from not knowing anything about this type of job to being able to do it used to be, when I started doing IT managed service sales almost 13 years ago now, it was first 3 months on the job, only learning about IT services, only learning about hardware, software, things that we're doing, and just shadowing, going around with the founder at the time as he was selling, just learning. And then, watching some videos from a company that we had partnered with. And then I went off to a training after 3 months. And I got back from that training. And the very next month, I was expected to get out there and start selling, right? And I didn't close my first deal for 3 or 4 months.
Well, that is 6 months in, yeah?
Right, 6 months in. No production. Just a expense, a pretty hefty expense on the company.
Yeah.
Learned, stuck with it, so on, and the rest is history. But that system took me that long. What I had learned, I reconnected with that same company that taught me so many years ago, and they had shortened it down to 30 to 60 days. Like the first 30 days was like my first 3 months 15 years ago. I'm like, oh, well, I didn't connect with them until almost 6 months into this person's employment. So anyway, it took a while. They started closing some deals, and that person has recently left, gone to work for a competitor. So here I took someone, plugged him into my system. He had some success, was doing good, and saw some bright horizons, and kind of decided to jump ship, looking for, climb a different ladder, grass greener on the other side kind of thing.
Yeah, like it's important what you said there, yeah? Like it's very rare in a situation that you hire someone that can sell better than the founder, because number one, you've just got that allure as the founder. You've spawned this project, this business.
Yeah, you've got this aura about you.
Right, that's right. There's that aura about you. You've got that title. So it's a little bit easier for you to get onto someone's calendar. But if if you can accept that the person you're bringing on would deliver 70 to 80% of the volume that you once did, but now this is their focus and it gives you the time back to focus building the business, then that is a great trade-off.
Okay. Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know why. I think what my mindset was back then, I was in my early 30s. I just had my first kid. I was commuting 2 hours to come work at this company.
Wow.
I was not even at home during the week for most of the week, and I'd go back home a couple days. And so I had this mentality that I had to win no matter what. Now, the person that hired me was a close friend, and he was building a company, but I was doing something I went from nonprofit fundraising and administration to for-profit IT sales. It was just like night and day.
Different worlds.
But I had this mentality of, I got no choice. I'm not going back to where I came from. I'm going to make this happen. And what I did when I was out and about and doing things, I never said I was the owner, but I acted like I owned the place. You know what I mean? Like, whether it was the responsibility of keeping the place clean when we had companies coming in to have presentation meetings with us, or, for a couple months, I remember a couple of the other people on the team that weren't sales related, kind of service related. Hey, Brian, cool. You don't own the place. I go, hey, we all need to act like we own this place if we want this place to be successful. You know what I mean? Like, nothing can slide past. And to my friend's credit at the time, he was okay with that. He didn't take it personally. He wasn't like, hey, this is my company, stop it. You know what I mean? Because I'd never say as a salesperson, hey, I own this company. But my kind of certainty when I was meeting with people is that everything that they need someone in my seat to know, I know. You know what I mean?
That is such a great attitude to have.
And it's hard. It's hard to find people willing to turn that switch on. I struggle with that. And now that I'm a founder and part owner of this company, I struggle with it even more because I'm like, guys, why can't you turn that switch on? I don't know where that comes from, but
it's not something that you can really teach. It's something that person has and comes with, like that drive. We're like some part of what we do, we're reviewing the sales team and the performance for the company. And, I've got a call this week where I'm like, I'm going to have to, give them the ultimatum. And the good thing is that we can be emotionally detached from the individual because we're there for the founder. And we can say, look, what you're asking us about their attitude, their willingness to learn, because they're having problems with them, doing the training and applying it. I'm like, well, that's red flags, for me. Like if a salesperson, one, is not performing, you, the founder, are providing them education, coaching, training from an external resource, and they're not willing to, consume it and dive into it, then it's time to move them on and find someone who is. Otherwise, you're spinning your wheels with this person when you need to find someone who's willing to go all in and do the work for the business.
Another mistake I realized too late into it when I hired this person was I hired them as an hourly employee instead of salary.
Okay.
And I when I was kind of evaluating things, because it wasn't all bad. He had got to a point where he was closing deals. He was starting to get a good flow in. But I was like, what's missing? And I felt like some of the, commitment level to winning and doing whatever it takes to win in a deal, whether it's early in the morning, late at night, on a weekend, whatever, wasn't there. And it was always like, it was the punch in, punch out mentality. I was like, man, I haven't had that ever. Why? Even when I was an employee, the only time I think I was an hourly employee was when I worked for UPS, filling trucks with boxes. And I hated that. But ever since then, it was always salary, and there's a trade-off, right? There's some freedom and flexibility versus that. And I was like, man, I remember telling my business partner, Manny, I'm like, I made a mistake. Should have hired originally on salary, because you have to have the mentality of, I'm going to do whatever it takes whenever it's necessary to win, because if I win this, it's not only good for the company, but it's good for me personally, because this is the extra money I'm going to make. And if you have the mentality of, oh, it's 5:00, click out, I'm out, and you totally turn the switch off, no matter, if you're not in the office, I don't know. What's your opinion on it? Because I've just learned it doesn't work very good from a sales mentality. If it's not an inside sales where you're an 8 to 5, people calling in, you're transactional, sending quotes out, getting things back kind of a thing.
Yeah, it comes down to a pure care factor.
Yeah.
Does this person care about what they're doing, the business, what they're selling? Is there a connection there between me and that individual? I like to think of it as, in my early years of building a business, I used to think of it as a family, that, I'm building a family, but I sort of changed from that as I've gotten older to think, well, a family, you don't get to choose your family, right? Your family's given to you. So you might have some special people in your family that you don't really like. We've all got that person, and everyone's probably thinking about, oh yeah, that is X. I like to think of it as a team. Right? We're a sports team. We're a high-performing sports team. And if you're not willing to put in the work, in your game to be present and to be switched on game day, which means hitting the gym, doing the reps, researching your opponent, understanding how you can help them, then you're not going to be able to perform. Now, whether you're hired per hour or salary, like in sales, if you're hired per hour, you could literally work for 5 companies and make an amazing living if you're an absolute weapon, right? And you care and you apply yourself and you're at the top of your game, right? So I've seen it work. I've seen it not work from that hourly rate, but the common denominator is that person.
Yeah,
right?
it's that hunger factor, right?
It is, and they're hard to find.
Yeah, I was watching. I was probably doom scrolling or something in bed, but I came across this video, and I think it was Tony Robbins talking to somebody about Steph Curry, right? Basketball player, one of the greats these days, right? Unbelievable shooter. He's like, everybody sees Steph Curry during the games, and he gets paid millions of dollars per game that he plays. And his percentage is high, his three-point percentage is high, is why he's great, he's got championships. But nobody sees the 500 shots per day in his gym at home. He's not making, no one's cutting him checks for that. But people are cutting him checks for the performances because of that, without that. So if you say every day, 500, 5,000, I don't know, it's a lot, ridiculous amount to have that good of a performance percentage to get paid that type of money. We're talking hundreds of thousands of shots a month, millions. I'm like, that's the mentality you got to have with whatever, with what you're doing if there's no ceiling. And kind of my philosophy with the sales staff is, hey guys, no ceiling. Because if you're killing it, the company's going to be just fine paying whatever we need to pay you.
That's it. Like it sets and reps, right? Like if you're willing to put in
sets and reps, I like that.
If you're looking to put in the reps and making those cold calls and getting the rejections and being resilient and moving forward and taking them as learning opportunities, then you're going to perform. Like I'm a soccer/football coach, depending where you listen to this in the world, of my daughter's under 13s team. And last night I was working with the goalkeeper, and we got into the stage where she needs some help with her goal kicks.
Okay.
There's a lot of turnovers that happen from that. So we got to the point where she was kicking it great, and then she's like, cool, what do I do now? I said, now we just do this for the next hour. Kick after kick after kick after kick. It just needs to become a rhythm where you don't think about it no more, right? So you need to do this 10,000 times, right? Every week now, and it will just become natural. So that's like I said, it just comes down to that individual always. And again, it is a hard thing to find. But when you do, I love that. Yeah. Like I had the same approach, no ceiling. I said, I want the sales and revenue generating people to be the highest earning people in the business. Mm-hmm. That means you're killing it. The business is doing well. We can invest in, the brand, the product to make sales even easier. And you can earn whatever you want depending on how you are. If you want to work extra, if you have no external commitment and you want to do a bit more and take calls at different times, hey, go for it. Why would we put a ceiling on that? I don't understand companies that do that, so long as they can afford it. But if they're driving that revenue, then surely you can. Don't give them a ceiling. Let them be their own limitation.
So I was watching one of your podcasts this morning, not yours, but one of ones you appeared on. I loved one of the things in particular. I can't remember the question that brought it out, but what you were talking about is you were distinguishing between inbound and outbound.
Yes.
marketing, sales, pre-sales kind of stuff, right? And most people these days, in fact, most people in the last 8 years, and I'm guilty of it. I cut my teeth on outbound, and I didn't even know what inbound was. I thought it was just black magic. I still think it's black magic. I still think it's voodoo, But everybody, your HubSpots and all these other companies, they just do a really good job marketing inbound, and inbound is very sexy, right? It's, hey, if we have the right look, feel, message that gets out there, phone's just going to ring, and everybody who calls has a need, and we're going to close it, right? And I will say, when you strike lightning once or twice a month because of what you're doing with SEO or what you're doing with Google Ads or your, whatever your market is, where you're putting ads out there, and you strike gold, lightning strikes, angels appear, the phone rings, and someone has found you and called you for their need, and they're not calling anybody else, right? And okay, you work that and you get it to a close. And we've had a couple of those in the last few months because of some of those things that we've been doing for the last 12 months, but it's taken so much time, so much money, so much hope, which hope is in sales. You don't want to rely on hope, right? You want to rely on blood, sweat, and tears. And that's why I would say over the last year and a half, I still think there's a place for inbound, right? You can't completely ignore it because you can but you can't control it. And when I heard you say that, I'm like, amen, 100%. You can make all these pretty colors and messaging and put the things out there and do a really good job with your message and make it concise and laser pointed, but you're still just putting it out into the ether and hope something comes back. At least with outbound, if you're bad at it, you just got to do more of it. If you're paying attention and what I call PDCA, plan, do, check, adjust, paying attention to what you're saying every day and doing and putting out there and making adjustments to what's worked, stop doing what's not working, and just get better, you're starting to gain control over your wins and losses, right? So I'd love that you said that. Talk a little bit more about that and how hard is it these days to get people to, because I think it's a courage kind of thing. A lot of people have moved so far away from picking up the phone. And even with my service team, I'm like, hey, did you contact so-and-so today about that, message? You replied to it. Yeah, I sent them an email. I'm like, why didn't you just pick up the phone and call them? Yeah. They're at their desk. So talk to me a little about what's your opinion? What are your thoughts on that? What do you find out there? Because you're talking to all kinds of companies and people in my seats more often than I am. So. Yeah,
I was itching to interrupt you about 15 times during that.
100% interrupt me.
I love it. No, I love it. Look, and we're doing it now. So the difference between us and a lot of other sort of sales, I hate the word sales training. So, but we practice what we preach. So we're doing the same things that we talk about within our program. Inbound, outbound, all bound. Now another term. And I'll give you one thing, that HubSpot, Stripe, they've got some of the biggest sales teams in the world. And we've got some of those individuals from both those companies in growth forums. So even though the likes of a HubSpot has built that terminology, they've been known for that inbound, people still...
Inbound certified marketer, right? You can go in there and, right? Yeah.
That's right. People are still, and we do it now, right? So we've got a blend of paid advertising, that goes out there, and those individuals that come into our funnel from that versus the ones that we go out and do the cold outreach, do the outbound motion, same effort to close. They're not easier. They've just come in and they're like, some of them are like, I just clicked an ad, right? Tell me what you do. So they're super uneducated, and then you're starting from scratch, educating them on it is what you do. So they might not be at that bottom of the funnel ready to buy. So that motion, that system that you have in place still comes in play, whether it's an inbound or an outbound approach. And the thing that we like to, talk about a lot, which you pointed out, is you have no control over inbound, right? It's an expensive, and it's only becoming more and more expensive to generate that demand, right?
Cost per click.
Cost per click is increasing, and depending on what you sell and the price point, you might just price yourself out of that avenue. So I'm a previous CMO, now turned CEO, and my belief is that marketing should enable sales to become easier. right? So when you got someone on the call, marketing's role is to ensure that they know, like, and trust you. And if they haven't yet, because you've just caught someone cold and they've never seen your brand, cool, now that they're in your world, that's marketing's role. Yeah. So whether it be via nurturing, education.
I call it creating curiosity. If you're out there, correct, like doing these kind of things, creating content, getting it out there, getting it in front of people, making them curious. Yeah, maybe not curious enough to pick up the phone and be an inbound lead.
Well, even if an inbound lead comes through, our first play is pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone. Thanks, Brian. Saw you booked in the time to chat with us. Just want to confirm that it still looked good. By the way, do you have a minute now? I'd love to learn a little bit more about what brought you to us, right? And then you just get that conversation going. And now when you have a call with them, you're super prepared. They've already heard your voice, so they're 80% more going to join the call rather than ghost you, right? So it all comes into play. And that's where, like, control, especially in sales, you need to have. And the only thing you can control is your output.
Yeah.
So the activity that you do, and it's not always you're going to do more calls, more this, more that. It's just becoming better at it. Mm-hmm. So if it takes you, 10 outbound motions, and when I say like an outbound motion, it's a call, an email, a social push, whatever it might be. If it takes you 10 to get a call on your calendar, then what can you do to turn that from, to increase those numbers, right? So you don't have to work more. You just got to work better and smarter. But then once you've worked out your numbers, you know that every day I need to do 2 hours of outbound, and I'm going to generate 10 book calls. And out of those, I'm going to send out 7 proposals. And of those 7 proposals, I'm going to close 5.
Yep.
You know your numbers, and it's going to fluctuate here or there, but you can forecast yourself with a high level of accuracy of, am I going to hit my KPI? And then that will then flow through to the founder, CEO, or whoever looks after revenue within the business. And then they can accurately forecast, are we as a business going to hit our revenue goals? And then they can make the right adjustments to the business and the right investments based on that. Yeah, that is absolutely the only thing you can control. You can't control your paid media, your SEO, any of that sort of stuff. Anyone that says you can is full of crap.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, the timing that we're talking here. By the time this show comes out, there's going to be some exciting things that you're doing, and we'll have started. We'll be about maybe a month or 2 into a new relationship with a company. Maybe not heard of them. They're small ish, only been around a few years, but they're growing like gangbusters. And they found us through Outbound Techniques. That I was just
yeah.
So the name of this company is Arsenal Business Growth, right? And they haven't produced one thing for me yet. Their process of onboarding has been amazing. The way they've treated me and the company and kind of, gone through. They're in St. Louis. I'm in Wisconsin, so I'm about 7 hours away. I had happened when we started a week after we signed a deal with them. I was going to be in St. Louis working with a new IT client, and I decided just to say, hey, we need to have this meeting anyway. You want me to stop by? I'm 30 minutes away. Sure, come on out. So I drove out there, and there was, they had never done an in-person meeting. It was kind of a wrap-up meeting. Usually it's like a Zoom meeting, wrapping up the onboarding, introducing you to your business development rep that they assign to you or you choose. So they're an outbound sales company that specializes in specific niche markets. It's, and their biggest market is IT managed services. And it's hard to sell this type of business over the phone to book meetings for what there's a number of different factors, but based on what I've seen, and they've done a magic, just again, some voodoo when it comes to the content they've created on and pushed out there online for people looking for what they do to have access to. Anyway, a couple months ago, I get an email, look at it. This looks interesting. I click on the link, and there's this self-directed sales call. The owner of the company, Aaron, kind of in front of a camera like this, just talking, here's what we do, here's what, hey, you want to get started? Click here. You can build your own agreement and see your price, right? I'm like, that's interesting. And I was super busy, so I just watched the video and I moved on, completely forgot about it. And a couple months later, we get a call from one of their reps, and his name was Logan. And I'm like, I don't ever answer the phone if it's something that I don't recognize. I push it to my assistant, who's right across the hall from me, and I always kind of listen. I wonder who this is. I wonder how she's going to handle this one, right? And with this one, I'm like, Arsenal, why do I know that? She's on the phone with this guy trying to just blow him off. And I'm like, oh, I remember these guys. These guys were interesting. IT managed service sales stuff, meeting booking and lead booking and stuff. And I'm like, hey, send that guy back over. I want to talk to him. So sent him back over. I talked to him. And then within a week or two, here we are, they closed a deal on us. We're paying them a few grand a month, and they're going to start Feb 1. And it's all outbound stuff. And they got this cool culture of, all their people they work in their office, they get rewarded by getting, work from home days and stuff. But here's the cool thing. Like, I'm sure they pay them some sort of salary internally, but every rep, so we're assigned a rep. He's going to get started for us here pretty soon. Now he's a 1099 for us now. So he's getting paid by Arsenal salary, but we're paying all his commissions.
All right.
Which is really cool. So I'm thinking okay, there's another expense, but you know what? I don't care. I want to pay this guy to kick butt, right? And so
you're paying him, he's delivering, right?
And these guys I'm watching, they'll highlight every week. They have a daily podcast that they put on their website and they put on YouTube, but they'll bring their most productive folks from the team in on the podcast and, hey, how are you doing? How's this working? What are you doing with your pitch? How are you changing things up? How are you closing deals? And what was the value? Oh, the value, we did a deal for 500,000 MRR last week and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. These guys are excited to be cold calling because
what they're doing there, Brian, just to interrupt you, it's almost like they're showcasing their employees to prospective customers.
And I'm like, mind-blowing. I could be doing this with my technicians.
Like, I need that person. I need that person. Yeah.
So this is one of the things I'm working on adjusting is how can I do this with my company when my technicians are kicking butt and they save somebody from getting hacked or something like that. I'm going to sit them down at the podcast table. And I'm going to start doing some daily content. And I'm going to interview them. I'm going to get them excited so that people that are looking into us are like, wow, these guys are really excited. They're not just mindless drones behind a computer screen moving a mouse, fixing email issues, So anyway, a lot of cool stuff that they're doing. And I was just, when I learned about what you're doing, it's very similar, business growth through outbound, sales training and stuff. Now, that they're not offering like trainings. They're just saying, hey, work with us. We'll be your outbound sales callers. We'll book meetings for you. Heck, if you want us to, if we set the infrastructure just right, we'll close deals for you. You know what I mean? If we're going to know your stuff so well that if the person says, hey, how much is it going to cost me for this, and this, and how soon, can you get me something now? We want to empower those guys to have enough confidence to send them a deal. I'm like, amen, let's go for it. So I had to tell you about that because I think that's something I'd love at some point to introduce you to Aaron because he's a cool guy. They do a podcast. Definitely. And I think when you get people, that are doing what you're doing, it's just, you're making this type of growth strategy relevant again because people have written it off is what I've learned, You
know why? And it's because it's not sexy.
It's not.
Right? You got all these tools out there, and I won't name the tools because they're friends of ours as well. Yeah. But these tools have glamorized just automation.
Yeah.
Come to us, connect this, connect that, use AI, create personalized messaging at scale, and you can blast 10,000 people a day, warm up these inboxes, and it's like, okay, that's cool. And it does bring some results, and we're talking like single digits, 3%, 4%, 5%. Hey, best case scenario, 10%.
Yeah.
But you're spamming a mass market. So while you're bringing in and getting some revenue, and it might be, quote unquote working, how much damage are you doing to your brand and pissing people off because of the spam messaging that you don't see, that you don't know? So are you really growing your brand, or are you limiting the growth based on the damage that you're doing? Because then when you get a sales team out, is the messaging going to be ignored because of all the spam that they've copped in the past from all this automation? And people aren't dumb. You can be really great with the AI now, tools that are out there, and they're only getting better on that personalized messaging. Mm-hmm. But what works amazingly well, and I speak with founders and buyers every day. All right, so we don't just do research, we're scouring the web. We talk to people.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing that works is just that real harpoon line brevity in an email, pinpointing the problem I have, that's going to make me, respond, and then repeating that, whether it's by email, phone, SMS, social, sending a video, hitting me where I'm most active on. If you're trying to hit someone on email, let me tell you that they're getting at least 200-300 emails a day. It's to brutal. The point where businesses have spawned out of blocking email and consolidating email.
More of my email gets blocked every day.
Yeah, look at that.
Gets through. And it's because it's all of that. And it's
rubbish. A lot of it is rubbish. So like I've responded to people on LinkedIn, WhatsApp, and on an account, we've sold our program through LinkedIn, WhatsApp, IM, and email probably not as much. That might be just where they see us, don't respond, but then respond to us on social, right? Yeah. So this is where you need that multi-channel motion and approach, because depending on where your audience, and not even your audience, depending where that individual spends more of their time and gets less messages thrown at them, that's where they may respond first. Then you can move them to a separate channel, a more, whether it be email, and they're going to respond. So yeah, it's I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, I can tell you're getting, I can tell you're getting fired up just talking about this stuff. So here's something I'm convinced of, because I talk to a lot of people and I try to, because one of the things you mentioned is like, it's not glamorous outbound calling and stuff. But you know what is glamorous? Glamorous is the wrong word, but you know what is a rush is closing a deal. Sometimes it's just getting to talk to somebody that where you struck gold. You said the right things. You remembered it. You left 50 voicemails today. You got hung up on 30 times, but somebody answered, and you got over the hump of not knowing what to say, and you actually got something out of your mouth. And you let's say you booked an appointment, and that ends up being new business. And that's a rush. It's an adrenaline rush. It's the only thing in life that reminds me of when I was young and used to play sports and would score a touchdown or hit a home run or make a basket, and hear people cheering for you in the stands.
You know what's even better than that though, Brian, is closing the deal with someone who you can really help.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the kicker, like the after rush, is then them coming back to you and going, Dave, because of what, I've learned, or what you said, or, how we implemented X, we've now achieved this. That is it's like seeing your kids go off to college or do something amazing.
Right? Like when they first walked or they first said your name, it's like, whoa. And it's like, it is.
I told you, yeah?
I wish I could convey to people that don't understand, that work in different, verticals or industries or different capacities. And they're like, oh, I could never do sales, or I could never. And I try to tell them, I go, you could, you just don't know. You think it's all, bad, trying to manipulate, coerce and stuff like that, but there's certainly that out there.
Yeah.
But so tell me about a time, you personally, something like the most memorable, let's say, business relationship you ever, created, or let's say, contract that you ever got signed for one of your companies, that not necessarily, it doesn't even have to be a high monetary value thing, but just something that was just such a rush. Because I've had these ones where I can't function the rest of the day because I'm so excited about what just happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, as soon as you said that, one came to mind, and it wasn't too long ago. So it was back in Locomote. We were, not the number one. And when I say not the number one, we believed in our product that it was market leading.
Yeah.
But we didn't have the money that these other brands had. They were spending millions, per month on their brand and media, massive teams. So they had the reputation, right? They've been around for a lot longer. So they were safe. They were like the quote unquote IBM, you never get fired if you hide IBM sort of saying. And we were the, newcomer, let's call it, the semi sort of untrusted, because we haven't been around for decades and had that legacy system. So anyway, we're going after a university, and universities are quite traditional. They have a procurement process. They always like to pick 2 or 3 vendors.
RFP kind of stuff.
RFP, they grill them on 1,000 questions. But it was a great target for Locomote, and it still is, because they're super sticky. They actually use the system, because that was another sort of thing. You could sign someone up, but if they don't book and use your system, no revenue comes through.
Yeah.
But they actually use the system because they prescribe it to everyone. So they're great customers. They're just hard to get into. And I remember reaching out to this RFP, and I went to the individual that was running it. I won't mention her name, but she was like, we're done. We got our vendors in. Thank you. We'll look at you next time. I'm like, geez, that's a blow off for 4 years, because they lock people in for 4 years. So I'm like, all right, but I'm just going to try. I'm not going to badger her. I'm just going to share a little bit of insight over a couple of weeks, right? And this was talking like 1 or 2 emails, and I'll drop a LinkedIn connection. So I did that, shared some good insight, shared a little video of me in the LinkedIn message of, hey, this is what we got coming out. This is how it's helped this university that's similar to you. Check it out. It's a real specific thing for your space. And next minute, I get an email back saying, hey, let's have a chat. I like this feature, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing from the vendors that we've got. So we get onto a bit of a chat, built that connection, and I was just like, look, just tell us about, give me your top 3 problems that you're having, and then we'll just talk around those and where the others are falling down that you need. So anyway, fast forward that, we built a great relationship to the point where before she was going into meetings to get approval, because like many, the person you're speaking with, they may or may not be the decision maker. So there's other people in the buying committee, right? And we talk all about this a lot. There's often the assassin that we like to call the person that likes to kill the deal.
There's the decision maker. Yep. There's the detractor.
There's a few of them in there, right? And you don't get to speak to all of them. So this is where, in this case, she was my champion and supporting for us. We need to arm her with everything that she needs to win. So she was often SMSing me before she was going into a meeting saying, hey, I'm seeing X. I know I'm going to get asked why. Can you give me something quickly? Bang. And so now we're on an SMS status, like a friend, right? I was the guide mentor to help her win this deal. That was an amazing win for us. And the market were like shocked, but like, how did Locomote win this deal versus, us? Players that have been here for ages, sent in an army of team, where literally the only people that got involved in this deal was me and my cousin, my co-founder, Ross. And that's it. And they love that.
There's no automation or AI that's doing that.
There was none of that.
Even now, there's nothing that has that factor.
No.
Right? You could maybe train a script or an AI to send that in-mail message with a cute video highlighting some things from their space that would help them. Okay, maybe the hook sets that way, but you're definitely not telling, AI is not going to be in that lady's pocket when she's about to go into a meeting.
That's right.
Saying, you know what I mean?
And that's where we're like, okay, we're not anti-AI by any means. I use it
sure
200 times a day.
Use it all the time, but like not for that.
Leverage AI to make yourself superhuman. Think about yourself as Iron Man.
Yeah, AI is your suit, right?
AI is your suit. AI is your Jarvis, right? It's there to guide you, to make you 10 times more productive, to do the things that it can do, to do the research, to come up with the plan, to write the proposal, to summarize the email, to summarize the meeting, all those things that used to take you time, leverage the hell out of it for that. And then when it comes to the human connection, use yourself. You're the person for that. Don't try and replace that element because you're unique. So yeah, definitely not anti-AI.
Cool. Hey, we're getting close to an hour. There's a couple things I still want to cover real quick. If you're talking to somebody who's cutting their teeth, or let's say you're hiring somebody new, or working with building a team for one of your clients and kind of help coaching those founders on how to build the right team. But you can't always, it's hard to find people that are available that are good at sales, right? Because if they're good at sales, people don't want to let them go. They're working, right?
True.
So, let's say somebody green, they seem to have the right personality, they're hungry. What are you telling them to go out there and look at as far as, are you telling them books? Are you telling them to follow certain people, different philosophies, what are you helping people with that they can kind of self-direct on in their free time to get better?
Yeah. So it depends on what sort of avenue they want to go down in sales, but often, it's, there's a range of amazing books out there that teach specific things within that sales world and life in general, whether it be psychology, how to do your messaging, a range of things like that. And there's amazing sort of online resources and people to follow as well, especially on LinkedIn, that produce amazing content, whether it be about how to position yourself as an authority, how to message out on LinkedIn. There's a range of that. There's always find your person. There's a million of us out there, and we're not for if you want to learn how to build a sales system within your business, I say follow us. But again, too, we're not for everyone. People would like what we talk about and resonate with us, great, and other people won't. So then here's someone else that you can go follow. So follow who you like, right? Who you can think yourself working with, or who sings your tune, and interact with them. Engage with them, reach out to them. I know I personally, I love it. I love to help people on their journey and point them. We don't and can't serve everybody. So we help, it's a nice network within the sales world. So we're often going, okay, you should talk to XYZ. He or she is a weapon at this, and I'll make an intro for you.
If you were stuck on an island, but you could work remotely, but you needed to have one book to fall back on, what would that be?
I have to be shameless and almost give myself a plug on the book that we've written. So we've written, my co-founder and I, we've put our heart and soul.
It's a pretty good segue,
book.
Wasn't it?
It was a great segue. It wasn't even set up at all. The B2B Sales Playbook. So it's everything that Luigi has taught me. We co-authored this book together. It's what we teach in our program. It's a no fluff. When we're sitting down thinking about the book to write, because we always wanted to write one, it's like there's so much amazing books out there. We want to make something that's different. We want to make something that is very super tactical, that has story, that gives you the templates, the frameworks, and it also gives you the coaching. So as soon as you open it up, there's a link in there that says get all the resources and frameworks, and day by day you get an email with those details and coaching points for each chapter. And you don't have to read it sequentially. You might jump in and go, okay, I've got a problem with X, skip to that chapter. There's a story, there's a coaching point, there's a template, and there's an action point.
So you got a printed copy there, but this book isn't out yet, right? It's coming out.
When this podcast airs, it will be officially out. I've got the only copy right now in my hands. So it's, I can't wait to get it out. It's been, I think, 13, 15 months in the
I don't know if you're taking pre-orders, but I want on the list of an autographed copy.
Done. I'll send you the manuscript locked in. But it's something we're really proud of, and it's something where I want to be able to answer that question honestly, because we talk about ethical sales, and say I believe in my heart that this is, if not but one of the best business books that will be out there in the market, and it needs to sit on a founder's desk and a seller's desk across the globe. Even if that means we've got to give it away to people, I don't care. If you can't afford to get the book, or there's some limiting resources, you just hit me up and I will send you a copy, whether it be digital or the audio, because the main purpose of the book is to help sellers hit their goals, build a career out of it. So it's not for us to make money, it's for us to make an impact.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to read it. I can't, just from talking to you for the last hour and learning a little bit about your background over the last few days, I mean, it's apparent you've got fruit on the tree, Dave. And that's a big deal in life and in business. And it's, one of the biggest things that we struggle with as company owners, founders, entrepreneurs, whatever we're going to call ourselves, is getting out of our own way, getting the courage to get big beyond ourselves. And how do we do it? Because there's the stumble and try, fail, win, that approach of trial and error. But I learned years ago, and whether it's standing on shoulders by reading a book with someone with fruit in the tree, or surrounding yourself with people that got the results that you want or the experience that you want, and kind of just being a sponge and trying to get to the point where you can add to that group. Those things are huge. And a lot of people will say, I don't read books. I used to say the same thing. They put me to sleep. They still do. If I lay down or sit down in a chair and try reading a book, could be the best book ever, it's putting me to sleep. And then I heard a guy say, hey, stand up, walk around. Because if you fall asleep, you'll fall over and it'll wake you back up. But read, spend some time. And
even if it's the audio version, try and get it in and consume it. Yeah, look, it's
absolutely.
it's a skill. Like
I see New York Times bestseller in your future.
That'll be nice. That'll be nice. Let's get it there.
Cool, man. Hey, we're right at an hour. Went a little bit longer. I've been trying to make these a little shorter, but I'm sorry. This is just too good. I could go for another 2, honestly, but Matt would
talk about it all day.
Yeah. So, thank you so much, Dave, for joining. And I know it's not, it's 2:00 in the afternoon here. I know it's not that where you are. So you're probably normally, head on the pillow or maybe doing some productive things right now. I don't know, but thanks for taking the time to join us and, edify our listeners and fans with your expertise and your experience. It's been awesome.
It's a pleasure. I'd love riffing with you on this, Brian. Thanks heaps.